Hello, and welcome back to Collect Your Thoughts. May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and today's episode is all about therapy. We are breaking down how to find the right therapist, the crucial mindset to strive for, and how to best utilize the therapeutic experience to its fullest potential. Plus, Jason and I will reflect on our own experiences both in the therapist chair and on the client couch, and what we have learned. If you are on the cusp of considering counseling, spoiler alert, we all should, this episode is for you. So sit back and get comfortable as we light the way. I'm Sean Millhouse,
And I'm Jason LeCompte.
and this is Collect Your Thoughts. Jason, how you doing today?
Hey, I'm good. I got my boot instead of being in a cast for the next 6 weeks, so I'm actually
Woo!
pretty excited about that. I get to shower like a typical, mostly normal person. I still have to sit on a shower chair like an old man, but I don't have to wear a big silicone sock over my bandage or like I was for the last couple of weeks. So yeah,
I
I'm
mean,
good.
you were doing that
I feel really
before you
good.
even had an injury, though, just because that's kind of the person you are.
I can't get my foot wet, so I gotta wet. Yeah, no, that's not what.
I don't want my wet feet in the shower.
Yeah, yeah. What's going on with you? How have you been?
I could be better, but I mean, it's also like, it has been worse. Yeah, I don't. Yeah, this is a great question, especially for this
Hmm.
episode.
Yeah.
As we've alluded to in the intro, this is a therapy episode that we're really going
Mm.
to dive into the ins and outs of starting therapy and the whole experience. But I don't know what is it like for you when your clients are they seem like really curious about how you're doing
Oh,
because
yeah.
when I was in I don't know if it was just like a difference in the clientele or
Mm.
maybe maybe it wasn't as seemingly or
Uh-huh.
personable, but I didn't feel like I encountered as many clients that would go, "And how are you doing?" They would just usually just roll with the punches. I'd be
Yeah.
like, "Oh, how's it going?" And then they start talking and we just get into it.
Yeah, sure,
And
yeah.
I feel like lately I've been getting more of the like, "How is it going?" I'm kinda like, "Am I putting out an energy that people are, like,
Maybe,
checking on
yeah.
me more?" But,
Yeah.
I'm trying not to. Well, anyway, I did have a client ask me that, and I was like, I've been better and I've been worse, but, I'm here, and that's all
Yeah.
good. How are
Sure,
you?"
yeah.
And I even,
Yeah.
go through this awkward shuffle with my clients where I'm like, "Listen, this is really awkward for therapists sometimes because we're so used to this being a relationship that goes one direction mostly.
Right.
And in
Right.
terms of the vulnerability and the depth of what I share about myself,
Mm.
it's not going to be as intense as
Right.
what the client is bringing. But
Right.
I also, though, then want to validate that I appreciate that they're being a nice human being and that it's really nice of them to be just curious because a lot of times they'll be like, well, yeah, I just want to know just because, because they'll kind of mention how it is a strange paradox to, go in and talk to a person about your deepest thoughts and feelings. And then for them to just be like, well, that was nice. Okay, don't ask me about anything. Bye. And so,
Yeah.
anyway, I'm
Yeah.
curious,
Yeah.
what's your experience with that?
Yeah, I think it varies from client to client. There are some clients that I have been working with for years and years, and they've gotten to know me really well because of that. And
Mhm.
so they might see me one week and go, What's going on? Like you bring in different energy today, right?" And I actually I appreciate that because clearly it's in my body language or my face or my
Sure.
whatever, right? I've also had the the added fun of scooting around the office on my knee scooter since I've had my surgery.
Yes,
So
yes,
some of
yes.
my clients, this is the first time they're seeing me with
Yeah.
this particular injury, and they're like, "Whoa, what's going on?" And so, I give them the brief 30-second version.
Yeah. Of
Um, but I always appreciate it. Like I feel like,
course you
uh,
do.
so I probably trend more towards maybe revealing a little bit more than just, and I'm just guessing based on the things that you've shared,
Yeah.
that the way that you've talked about with your clients. I might share a little bit more,
Yeah.
but I always appreciate when somebody asks because I do feel like it's relational and that
Yeah.
we're checking in with each other, right? So they get 2 or 3 minutes max at the top, right, of, like, my stuff, my world, and then, of course, it's their session, and so it goes right back to them, but, yeah, I like it, I appreciate it.
All right, so let's get to the main event, which is talking about the therapy experience.
Oh,
I
okay.
I would
Not WrestleMania. You're not talking about WrestleMania.
gonna kill you.
Got it. Thank you.
I feel like we're having a I mean, not to say that you're ever, like, angsty at all, I feel like, but also I do feel like you took, like, extra goofy pills today,
I
which
did.
is, it's nice when I'm also there with you, but today I'm like, "Oh, boy." Okay, so,
Mm,
collect your thoughts. I would like to think that it's our goal to encourage everyone to consider therapy for themselves in some way,
amen.
in the same way that we encourage people to go to the doctor on a regular basis, to
Huh?
really
What?
begin
Yes.
listen, peanut gallery, I'm gonna kick
Sorry,
your ass.
I'll reel it in, I'll reel it in. I'm at a 10 right now, I'll reel it in.
You really are. It's just like I'm like, "Hello, hello, bonjour, hola."
I have my clown hat on today.
You really do.
Okay.
And so anyway, I do think it's a very important point to make that we don't often look at going to therapy at the same importance as going to a medical doctor. Now, I do feel like that's
Yeah.
shifting more and more, and we have come a long way. However, there's still a lot of taboo, I think, feelings around therapy, and it still can be
Yeah.
very, very
Still a lot more
stigmatized.
ground to be gained. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. And I really look at it as like the only way we can change that is really talking about it from people that have who do this work every single day as
Mm.
therapists, but then also who have at some point in time been involved in some kind of therapy as a client. So knowing
Mm.
both sides of it and how that also I think has informed us as therapists and vice versa. So it's a
Yeah.
really interesting connection. So I thought I'd start with finding a therapist, which I
Ooh.
did not know until I went into private practice. I did not realize psychologytoday.com was anything more than maybe just a website about the Psychology Today magazine. And so
Sure. Yeah.
when I was considering private practice, it was like one of the very first things that was told to
Mhm.
me was you've got to get a profile up on Psychology Today. That's going to be the
Yep.
best way to find people. And now it truly is. It's outside of after you've hopefully developed connections and have other therapists who maybe think you would be a better fit for certain clients or they don't have the space for that client, but they think you might do well with them. I would say Psychology Today is probably the referral source. Is that your experience?
No, I agree. It's a really popular, really powerful search engine. Not everybody enrolls in that. Every
Sure.
therapist is listed on there, but I would say the vast majority are.
Yeah.
And my favorite, that's where I send everybody who's looking for a spot when I don't have a spot. You know,
Yeah.
we don't have a spot at our place, but you can do a filtered search on there. And you
Yes.
literally drill it down to your insurance and your zip code and any specific issues. And you can even separate by gender or LGBTQ especially or whatever. Like there's
Yes.
like dozens of filters on there, which is fantastic. So yeah, it's great. It really is.
Yeah. I think that part is super important because it's really hard, especially I think for we have people, many, many millions of people who
Mhm.
live in communities where they may not have access to a black therapist or a queer therapist or trans
Right.
therapist or
Yeah.
whatever. And what is this is something that really was born out of COVID is that
Yeah.
telehealth really changed the game.
Yeah. Yeah.
Telehealth has changed the game. So, what happened in some ways is that some therapists who are in different states got licenses in other states so that they
Yep.
could telehealth help clients who maybe don't have access to those services in person. And
Mhm.
so that to me has been one of the coolest things. I mean, I know I don't know if you still do, but like I work with clients that who are in farther parts of Arkansas than Northwest Arkansas. And
Mhm.
so that can feel really good to know that I can provide them something that maybe they can't find locally.
It is. Yeah, I agree. I still have one client that found me virtually during the pandemic that has stayed with me, because he just doesn't have access
Yeah.
to anyone else around him. And it's great. I love that it's a long-standing relationship. I love that
Yeah.
he can find some of the help that he needs, that I can be a support that way. So yeah, and it's been super useful.
Yeah. So the first step, go to Psychology Today, and when you go there, there is a is it find a therapist, find a counselor? It's one
It's
of
right at
the
the
two.
top. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
and so when you click on that, that's where, based off of your location, your zip code, or like for example, if you let's say you live in one city, but maybe you want to see a therapist in a different city, which is a very common thing for other therapists that have to
Yeah.
it can be very easy to feel like, "Ooh, I know too many people in this field,"
Yeah.
and who I know maybe from, a lighter conversation here and there, but it would still potentially feel really awkward to do work with those
Or
people.
or people who commute to other cities or
Yes,
towns and they want to see somebody on their lunch hour or
correct.
after work before they go home or things like that. So yeah, it's super useful that way.
So, put in the filters like Jason mentioned earlier with you can choose based off the conditions that maybe you've already been diagnosed with
Mhm.
or the concerns that you're having, everything like that. And they will give you a pretty good amount of individuals that might best suit you with those specific filters in place.
Mhm.
Now, one thing I recommend, and I don't know if you would say more or less, but I always recommend if you're going to do this search, aim to reach out to 2 to 4 potential therapists
Yeah.
because I think if you do too many, you might be like getting a lot of responses back and then you're trying to like balance out like, "Oh, who do I reach out to? Who do I choose?" Da, 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 da.
Mhm.
So, it's good to do that. However, you also don't want to have like too few because if you only have 1 or 2 options, they might be busy. They might not have updated their availability on Psychology Today. There could be
Right.
a lot of different factors. They might not take your insurance after all. So it's important to definitely try out a few different options. So if that doesn't work out, one thing I also recommend is if they get back to you and they're like, I'm so sorry, I'm not taking clients right now. And if they don't have a wait list, you are more than welcome to ask them, hey, do you have anybody who you
Mhm.
would recommend for, the similar style or things that you as a therapist work on. And I mean, all of us therapists who've been doing this a minute, we know other people in the community. So it is definitely a potential, but it's not a guarantee though. There's still plenty of time where we are inundated with all of our own work that doing
Yeah.
that legwork can be extra cumbersome at that point in time. So I think Jason, you recommended that you just direct them to Psychology Today if they hadn't
I
already gone
typically
that
do.
route.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, if I can help out, if I can help in the search, I will. If I can directly refer, I will, but if not, that's my go-to.
Yeah.
And I think for anyone listening who is thinking about like, I don't want to talk to 2 to 4 people to get started, like that feels really it really does depend on your area. So there are some
Yes.
areas where you're going to have to reach out to 4, 5, 6, maybe more people because
Mhm.
everyone is so busy and you may not find that fit. But you may want to in your area if people are available, start with 1 or 2, right? But
Yes.
find that and I think we're going to talk a little bit about it, but find that vibe, find that good fit.
Yes.
So that's why I think it's just really important. So, yeah.
Yeah. I also recommend being patient as
Ha,
it's not it's which that's right. Yeah. Being patient, waiting to
being
become a
a patient.
patient.
No, 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 babe, yeah. Mhm.
Because the truth is too, most therapists in private practice are doing all their own administrative work and of course tending to their current caseload and of course all the other stuff in life. So sometimes it does take us a day or two to get back to people. And it's not that we're just like, F you, we don't want to talk to you. It just
No.
it's hard to keep juggling. I think everybody understands that. So just
Yeah.
remember, if you don't hear back from a person in maybe what? I mean, 4 or 5 days, maybe then reach back out and check.
Yeah.
But, otherwise, like, let the therapist reach back out to you. And honestly, if you don't hear from them, then, it's unfortunate. It does happen sometimes, but keep looking, like, keep going. I think it's super important not to get discouraged if maybe your first choice is not available or doesn't get back to you.
Yeah. those of us that run our own practices and do all of the things from scheduling to billing to referrals to all right. It's we'll have an insurance request or we'll
Yeah.
have some sort of there's all sorts of like minutia that goes into running your own practice, and sometimes we really are just overwhelmed. And
Oh,
then there
yeah.
are sometimes when I get 6, 7, 8 requests in a week,
Yeah.
which is, I mean, a great problem to have as a private
Sure.
practice therapist, but also overwhelming because
Yes.
I'm only one person, and we as a collective are only 6 people. So I
Yeah.
really can't even farm out that many people to us. So yeah, so sometimes it is just difficult to get back to everybody, and we apologize. We want to help, but also time and energy is finite, right? So
Yes,
yeah.
yes. And then lastly on this part about finding a therapist is remember to ask if the provider provides consultations before scheduling. This is not
Yeah.
something that all providers provide, but it is definitely something that if people ask me and I want to hear them out, like I can absolutely make that happen.
Yeah, ask. If you're really curious, you don't wanna commit to a full session or you don't wanna fill out all the intake paperwork, you'd
Yeah.
rather just chat for 10 minutes and see, what the vibe is or whatever. There are some therapists who will do that, so yeah.
Yeah, and it could be really helpful, and also for us therapists, sometimes we can also feel out the vibe and know from that
Yeah.
interaction, "Ooh, this is maybe not the client for me. I don't
Mhm.
have what they are needing
Sure.
clinically speaking,
Yeah.
or I don't think will be a good fit for various reasons," which is everything. The fit is
Mhm.
everything. So
It is. Yeah.
just know that if a therapist says no, or they say, I think that I could find someone who would be better for you, this is truly us looking out for your best interests. We want you to be with somebody that can provide you the best treatment that works
Right.
for you.
We are helpers, but we are also bound by an ethical code that requires us to help you find the right person.
Yeah.
So it's not our job to find that one therapist, but it's our job to go, I know I'm not the therapist for you.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Common intake processes is what we're going to get into next. And I think it's super important to definitely make sure it's understood that each therapist has a very different style and approach to the onboarding process. Like there can be some things that might be similar, but we each have one that works best for our preferences, but also usually what is most efficient. And that
Mm,
can sometimes maybe feel frustrating, I think, depending on how quickly you want to get in. However, we want to make sure we are crossing every T and dotting every I before we commit to doing any work with somebody. And that can be with the kind of paperwork that we put out there that we need our clients to fill out first. It can be verifying your insurance, which I will always say bonus points if you actually call your insurance provider, which I know a lot of people don't want to have to do. And I get it because
mm,
insurance it's what pays our bills and it's also a major pain in the ass.
mm,
And anyway, you want to verify your benefits because sometimes if you wait for us to do that, which that's definitely part of my process,
mhm.
is that, people will have done all this work of completing the paperwork and then they hear their copay and they're like, "Oh my gosh, I have to pay the full fee up until my deductible is paid out and
Right,
then
right.
it'll finally pay at, 30, 40%."
Mhm,
And these are not things that we are setting. I think that's super important. There's a lot of times where I feel I experience that clients are almost frustrated with me for their shitty plan, which I believe me, obviously insurance is bullshit, but also,
yeah.
and I get it, it's very frustrating when that happens. But also, like, we're not doing that. We do not have control over your copay.
It's yeah, an unfortunate part of the process. But yes, it
Yes,
is very frustrating for you, for as clients, but also as therapists.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. If you are not using insurance, you can definitely ask a therapist if they have private pay options. So that might be, that they have a specific flat fee that they put out there for clients if they aren't using insurance or don't have insurance. And also that some therapists have a sliding scale option or pro
Mm,
bono spots. And of course, this is not something that we just want to say that it's across the board something that people offer. It's definitely going to be unique to each therapist and what their willingness is and ability to. What's your experience with that, Jason, with working with people with different cost needs?
Yeah, it was the way I was taught as a new therapist to think about it, or I guess encouraged to think about it, was that there are a myriad of ways to give back to the community as a therapist, and offering sliding scale or pro bono spots can be one of those ways. And I was
Yeah.
like, oh, that's a great way to frame that. So I have, since the beginning of me being in private practice, I have always offered to reduced fee where I set the fee, and then also to pay what you can spots. And so sometimes I take $10 for that spot. Okay. That's what I agreed to, right? That's okay. And it's not a hardship for me. It's also a way that I can provide more access to more of our community to have mental health treatment. Not everybody can
Yes.
afford, not everybody has insurance, not everybody can pay 30, 40, $50 on a copay, like all those things, right? So if $10 is what you can afford, hopefully you can find a therapist that will fit. But that's how I handle it. What about you?
Yeah, same. I definitely, coming from my community mental health background, it
Yeah.
was really important for me to not feel like I was completely closing the door to people who maybe don't have traditional insurance, or they don't have it because of various reasons. Especially right now, it's incredibly expensive to have
Yeah.
insurance, which is such a anyway. That's I
Yeah.
could go
No,
into that
I
forever.
know. Yep. Yep. Yep.
Yes. Yeah, what yeah, anyway. I just wanna, like, scream about it. Anyway, so, yes, it is important for me. I definitely take into consideration what they mentioned in their circumstances, especially if they are looking for something that I know is not the most readily available, such as a specifically people asking, for help with, anything queer related or
Right.
trans community related. I definitely feel a real pull towards those things. So if there are people in the community that need that support and I can handle it, I definitely have usually like a handful of spots
Mm.
that I will allow for those reduced pay, or yeah, we'll negotiate like what is affordable, what,
Right.
and
Right.
just understanding what that is. And and it's something that can feel really, really good, but also it's, you can never help everyone, but that's
Right.
just part of the job.
It'd be great if
Yeah.
I could just do what I do for free and just help everybody, but I can't do that. I can't afford to do that. Most
Yeah.
therapists can't afford to do that. So,
No,
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
if you can, I would love to, like, I don't know, meet your benefactor.
Right? Yeah. Yeah.
Because that's impressive. So, from there, you will likely be given paperwork. I know that for a lot of us who do private practice,
Mm.
it's so much easier to do these things digitally. Also, with that paperwork, it's very important. I say this to my clients all the time. They're I do have a lot of documents that I send. Most of them
Mm.
are privacy or policy related documents about,
Yeah. Informed
what my
consent, all
general
that.
yes,
Sure.
my,
Yeah.
consent forms, and also expectations about like correct, like basically appropriate, like boundaries around the work that we do. But then also,
Right.
I have different little mini assessments that I send that help me better gauge where a person is at with their symptoms related to depression or trauma or anxiety or
Yeah.
substance
And
use.
inform our approach to treatment. Yeah.
Yes, and then also I have my own intake form that I've, like, designed and fine-tuned over time that really goes over basically as much, I think, what I consider important points of history about a client, so that when I'm meeting them, I already have a general snapshot of where they're at now, so then when
Mm.
I meet with them in person, I have a better frame of maybe how to begin the work as
Mhm.
opposed to if I'm just going in blind. And
Right.
when clients fill out the paperwork, I love it when they're like, "Oh, I'm so sorry if I said too much." And I always say, "I don't know if
No.
you'll ever meet a therapist who'll be upset that you put too much information. I'm getting a window into who they are and
For
where
sure.
where their needs are. So I will always take more than less when it comes to information about a
Sure.
client."
Sure.
Yeah.
Here's maybe this is a little bit of a secret, like peek behind the curtain info for people, but like for therapists, like you can tell us things, and then there is also like the flip side of the coin where there's a lot of stuff that is hidden that we can see in what you don't tell us. So
Oh, yeah.
sometimes you can give me paragraphs and paragraphs of information and I'm like, "Oh, wow, we talked a lot about all of these things, but I'm still curious about X," right?
Mhm.
Or sometimes I get like a super super hard focus on one particular issue. So then my approach in some of those early sessions is I want to know like a small amount about that issue, and then I want to explore everything else that I didn't hear about in that intake form
Yes.
to give it context, right? To put it into a larger context so that I understand better why it's such a focus. So there's no wrong answer. That's my whole point in saying
Yeah.
that, right? You can tell us as much as you want to tell us or as little as you want to tell us. We're going to hopefully, if you can be truthful in your process. And trust me, every therapist will tell you don't waste both of our times by not being
Yes.
truthful. It's like it's sort of a joke, an industry joke, right? Like you're lying to your therapist, all you're doing is wasting both of our times.
Yeah.
But we want to help. And so please
Yes.
tell us all of the things you think are pertinent. And even if there's things that you don't want to say or don't want to put down on paper or online, right, in a written form, then bring it up in our first session. And that's great.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Definitely agree with that. I will often say to clients, I only know you from what you describe in this room.
Right.
I
Yeah.
have no idea who you are outside of this space. So you could just come up with a very elaborate version of events. However, that's not going to serve you, and I won't be able to serve you. So,
Mhm.
it really does behoove you to
Yeah.
actually lean into that vulnerability,
It
while
does.
also we'll get into it some more the importance of not feeling like you have to push yourself to an uncomfortable degree to be transparent yet,
Yeah.
maybe. So
100%.
yeah,
Yeah.
which really leads us into the first session. So we often, a lot of us, they call these intakes. Back in my community mental health days, it was the diagnostic interview, which a lot of these are like the
Mm,
codes or
sure.
that we use for insurance purposes. And so anyway,
Mhm.
intake is usually the pretty general phrase that we use. And I thought it'd be important first, before we really get into the nitty gritty of that first session, to talk about mindset.
Mm,
Because I think that while, yes, reaching out for help, period, is a huge step, and we commend you, and we're not expecting perfection, that doesn't exist. And at the same time, though, if you go in hoping that just by showing up, you're going to get better or change just by osmosis
mm,
only,
mhm.
you are fooling yourself. And that is something I think is important to say. However, again, we're not expecting you to be like the most open book, because we get that there's a lot of people who maybe have never done any emotional work ever. And so this is very, very foreign territory.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, Jason, when you think about the ideal mindset, again, this is just in the best case scenario, what do you see in clients that you work with where you're like, ooh, this is definitely like they're ready, they are like in it, and
Mhm.
I think this is going to be a fruitful dynamic.
Yeah, some of my favorite clients to work with, like, I think that mindset looks like I am living my life in the way that I was taught to live my life. I had expectations, and those expectations are not being met, and I can't figure it out. So
Yeah.
I need someone to help me figure that out. It's essentially a readiness to change.
Hmm.
I think that's the best way to summarize that is there's something wrong and I don't understand why it's wrong and I need to fix it, right? And I'm ready to make the effort to fix it. I just
Yeah.
don't understand how. And that's what most of our job is, right? Is helping people. I always tell people like you are the expert on your life.
Yes.
I'm the expert on the therapeutic process. You're the expert on your life. So all of the answers are going to come from you. I'm just going to maybe give a different perspective, a different viewpoint. I might filter them differently. I might add a little bit to something or subtract something, but 90+% of the content's going to come from my client.
Yes.
So the more willingness you have to change, the more readiness you have to be vulnerable and talk about those issues, the the better off the work is going to be, in the relationship and the process is going to be.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes. What are you often thinking in the
Mm,
intake process when you are first sitting with a client, you're
yeah.
gauging who they are, what they are bringing to the table? What are some of the things that go through your mind?
First, I'm probably thinking, "Oh my gosh, I hope I don't fart."
Really?
Not really.
Oh, I didn't know.
I was kinda making a joke. I was making a joke. Hey, therapists are human, right? We have to pee, we
I
have
know, but if like
gas,
if that's
maybe
like
we
your
ate
number one
lunch,
concern,
or
I'd be like,
yeah, no, it's not.
oh
My number one
Jesus.
concern, the way that I address my number one concern, and this is easily more than half, the vast majority of my clients, the way that I talk about it is, it's my job to create, safety in this room.
Hmm.
So I want you to always feel safe, but I'm going to ask you to be uncomfortable. And that's how I kind of parse out the therapeutic process. Like, this is work. Therapy is work, right? I am
Yeah.
not a wizard. I do not have a magic wand. I don't cast a spell and change you, right? You bring the problem in. We give it context. We give it perspective. We give different suggestions for how, and then you go home into your life and you make the effort to make those changes. So it's going to be uncomfortable. This process is work. Now, it's not always terrible. It's not always, facing your trauma. It's not, it doesn't have to be belabored, right? It doesn't have to be terrible to go through. That's not what I want my
Right.
clients to experience. But I want them to feel safe to be able to tell me things. And so that's the mood, the environment that I want to set for my clients. Is this is a safe space for you to explore anything you want. You can veto anything that I ask, and in order to make changes, you're going to have to face some things that maybe you haven't faced before, and that can be uncomfortable.
Yeah. I will almost always say the remark that you might be as a client talking about things that you've never shared with anybody in your life, and
Yeah,
we
sometimes. Yeah.
understand the gravity of that, and we understand the sacredness of that
Hmm.
because we understand that it's really hard to take the step that you took to get into this space to go to therapy, and
Yeah.
also like acknowledging the courage and bravery it takes to do that. I would also say like part of my process is, and well, I think everyone who's a therapist, we have to go over informed consent in our practice
Right.
policies. That is just our way of CYA, cover your ass, and also to make sure that our clients know the expectations of the limits of confidentiality, that
Right.
they understand that what is said in this room, we do everything we can to protect that information. However, if there is any consideration or concern about serious intent to harm oneself or others, or if there's any concern about abuse or neglect of individuals that can't defend themselves, we
Right.
have a mandated duty to report that.
Right.
So, and
That's
that's something I
all
make very
therapists
clear.
across the board.
Yes,
Yeah.
this is part of our
Yeah.
ethical code is we
Right.
must
Right.
do that.
Yeah.
I always reiterate with my clients that there's a lot of people, as scary as it might sound, there's a lot of people that have suicidal ideation. And what's important about that is that it doesn't necessarily mean they have a plan. It just means they have the thoughts regularly of maybe better if I wasn't alive. Or
Right.
sometimes I
Right.
think if this happened to me, I would not be missed or whatever. And and so I think that I always really reiterate with clients that it's only if we are approaching a territory where I am deeply, like, seriously, I always say serious threat to yourself
Mhm.
or others. That
Right.
is when a conversation about potential interventions on a higher scale are going to happen. But it's
Mhm.
never
Yeah.
just going to be you show up to my office and I'm like, hey, we have the van out back and we're going to throw you in and it's padded and we have a street jacket for you. Like, we do not do that. That is not our
It's not how it
thing.
works. One of the, I think, myths that I dispel on a pretty regular basis is that suicidal thoughts are normal. They're common, right?
Very.
They're not comfortable. They're not a sign of health,
Right.
but they are our animal brains, right? Our sort of our inner brain. It's not our higher functioning brain. It's our inner brain's way of going, this situation is terrible and we can't figure out how to get out of it. So we might as well die.
Yes.
It's an automatic thought. It comes from instinct, and it's not necessarily dangerous, right? And it's certainly not gonna land you in a straitjacket. But
No.
be honest about it, right?
Yeah.
Let's talk about it. Where is it coming from? What's motive? So that's obviously something important to address. But yeah, it's very, very common. And I think a lot of people are embarrassed or
Yes.
afraid or
Yes.
just to reveal, be honest about those things. And I just always encourage everyone when they tell me they're depressed, I ask the question and I just go, it's super normal and it doesn't mean anything, right? It doesn't necessarily mean anything
Right.
if it's not serious. So, yeah.
Also, part of the going over the practice policies is I often also make sure that we reiterate what the expectation for the fee will be, because even if we've had that conversation over email or
Mhm.
text, I still think it's important in person to reiterate that, plus my cancellation policy. I
Mm.
know we all have different policies. I personally have essentially a, if you late cancel or just flat out no show, then I usually will give like one free get out of I hate saying get out of jail free
Get
card
out of
because I don't
jail.
want it to sound
Yeah, I say it too.
punishing or
No,
punitive.
it's a Monopoly reference. We get it.
But also, like, we really want to reiterate that, our time is valuable. This is our livelihood. And we also are giving spots to people that maybe could have gone to other clients. And so we want to make sure that you're honoring your time and our time.
Mm.
And it can sometimes, most of the time, I feel like clients are pretty like understanding about that. They can understand. And
Yeah.
I'm very
Yeah.
clear about, as long as you're trying to communicate with me, I think that's the number one thing is I feel like when clients get in trouble is when they just don't communicate. Like they don't,
Sure.
it's either the very last minute or they just don't tell you they're not coming for whatever
Mhm.
reason. Maybe they forgot or maybe they just blew it off or whatever. But that is a consequence that we sometimes have. So then from there, we really are looking at like and we want to encourage clients too about like this is really where you're feeling out the vibe. This is, I think, important for clients to really think about, do I feel my shoulders going down? Do I feel like
Mm.
my nervousness that started at the beginning of a session has gone away? Do I find that this is easier to talk about things because of my feeling of safety around this person?
Mhm.
Any of those factors, we are looking at the vibe between ourselves and clients, but we
Mhm.
also are hoping that clients are doing that too, because we never want anybody to stick with us purely because they think it'll hurt our feelings if they acknowledge that we're not the right fit for them.
Yeah.
Because if that's happening, like we're missing a whole slew of information about what you need and what we're not providing. And we can either have a dialogue about that or we can help you find somebody else who can offer maybe what you are looking for. But know that we're not going to take it personally. Let me say this, a good, adequate therapist is not going to
Mm.
take it personally if
Mm.
you do an intake session and afterwards you send an email or a text and say, hey, I decided to go a different direction. Thank you so much for your time. That happens. It's totally
Yeah.
okay if that happens.
I was thinking the word mature, not to put too much of a judgment on it, but like a mature therapist will totally understand that and totally get that. They should be good. They should be adequate at their craft, but also like they should also have a sense of like, oh yeah, it just wasn't a good fit for them. So no
Yeah.
harm done, right? I'm not going to take that personally. I call it those first ssessions, I call them a just to get to know you session.
Yes.
And so I
Yes.
really do just want to have conversation, right? If you want to just tell me about your life, what you do, and whatever you feel like is important, or if you want to get into it and you want to start talking about what you're here for, that's fine too. Whatever information you feel like is important to share in that first session, that's great. I really just want to
Yeah.
get to know you as a person. And I mean, it's okay too. I mean, maybe you're going to talk about this, but like, it's okay to be nervous in a first
It's
session. If
absolutely normal. It's completely
Yeah,
normal,
totally.
normal to be nervous.
You've never met this person before. Maybe there's, not as much information online about them as you would prefer. Maybe it's, you're going to therapy to work on something that's really difficult for you to face. Whatever it might be, like that's a new experience. Like, go ahead and be nervous, be
Yes.
upset, be hesitant, but also be real about where you're at. I've had so many clients eventually just go, I'm just really nervous today. I'm
Yes.
like, you know what? Totally normal. That's totally fine. What would help you feel less nervous? Do you want me to
Yeah.
talk about myself? I'll tell you about myself, my background, my training, and I'll take the hot seat for a few minutes.
Yeah.
And that actually helps relieve some of the pressure in the room too. So
Yes.
hopefully, yes, hopefully you're going to meet with a therapist that knows that, understands that, and can help you through that.
Well, and I think that's the thing is if you feel that that is something where either they're because I have heard some unfortunate
Mm.
stories about therapists that just for whatever reason do not
Yeah.
remember what it's like to be a client, and
Yeah, I
which
know.
I think is
Yeah.
really, really scary when that happens because then you're losing touch with the vulnerability and courage it takes to do this. And
Hmm.
so it is very important for my clients to know it's completely okay if something just starts making you cry or if you
Hmm.
don't cry at all. Like it doesn't mean you're going to have necessarily this like full like oh my god all of my wounds are opening up like first session. Oftentimes
Yeah.
that's not the case. However, if it
Yeah.
does happen, like sometimes people are just at that place where they can't help but let it pour out because they haven't had anywhere else to put it, and we're
Right.
happy to receive that.
They've been holding it back for weeks and months and maybe years sometimes, right? And they finally decide it's okay and I'm ready. And they sit down and you're right. They pull the stopper out and it just all comes spilling, which
Yes,
that's okay too. I've had that experience many times as a therapist.
for sure.
Mhm.
And I always like to also reiterate with clients like there is no expectation for you to get into the hardest, most traumatic shit you've
Oh
gone
gosh.
through,
Yeah. Yeah.
especially in the first session, especially maybe in the first 5, 6, 10 sessions, depending on how a person is and what kind of trauma they've experienced. We understand that just like every other relationship, you have to get to know one another.
Hmm.
Now, there
Yep.
are some times where you do feel like, and you feel it as a therapist too, when you just feel like, we're right here together. Like we are just
Hmm.
completely interlocked in this. And there is such a feeling of, for whatever reason, I'm going to jump off this metaphorical cliff and share this really hard thing with this person I'm
Hmm.
just meeting. And that does happen, which is phenomenal when it does. However, it's definitely not something where I'm like, oh, they didn't want to talk about this one thing that they've alluded to in their paperwork. That means they're not ready. Like, not at all. Not at all. We
Yeah.
understand it takes time to get comfortable to talk about things that maybe you've never spoken out loud.
Yep. Yep.
Also, just remember, trust the process, which is, I know, a really hard thing to say, and it gets said a lot. It can sometimes be overwrought with how often the term trust the process is said, but it
Hmm.
truly is a process. It truly is something that you have to give in order to get. It is so important. Those things are interlocked. Like if you do
Yeah.
not give whatever energy you are willing to give to that, then don't be surprised if what you get back is very minimal or is
Hmm.
unsatisfactory because it's sort of a dance of sorts. You really
Yeah.
do have to give and take. And again, this is a sort of a mirror of every relationship is that the therapeutic relationship is just one where there are more particulars around how the dynamic revolves. So just remember to trust the process, but also trust your intuition. If you just have a gut feeling where you're like, I'm just not vibing with this person, like
Hmm.
maybe I can't read their sense of humor, or I don't like their sense of humor, or I don't, I didn't loosen up by the end of the session, like even a tiny bit. It's okay to acknowledge that. I always recommend trying to go for a second time at least, because
Hmm.
sometimes the first time is just a lot of feelings, and then the second time we might be able to narrow in on some of their experiences that are more present or whatever, and so that creates more ease. However, we also wanna honor your intuition if this is just not the right fit. So then talking about the work ahead, we want to think about what you want to discuss the most. I feel like to me, as much as there are overarching trends or concepts that I discuss with each client that is special to them, I also want to know what feels the most like in need for them.
Hmm.
I don't want them to feel like they're coming to me and I'm like, no, 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 no. We're going to talk about that thing from your childhood that has allowed for
No.
this way of thinking to like, no, 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 no.
Right.
That's not me
Right.
following the client. That's not me meeting them where they're at. So it's to me at least deeply important that we want to prioritize what feels most important to you. I don't know.
Mhm.
What about you, Jason?
Oftentimes, I will have clients tell me, "I think I need to work on A, B, and C." And I'm like, "Okay, that sounds great. Tell me about those things." And then maybe we have a couple of sessions and maybe we get into it. And then I go, "Okay, well, A and B feel like they're maybe handled, or maybe they're in a place where they're settled, right? C feels like the thing that maybe is the
Hmm.
priority. What do you think?" And it's always, my clients always have agency. I'm never going to push for something that I think should be the agenda. If it's really and truly important to my client, then I'm going to follow their lead and I'm going to
Yes.
let them make that decision. But I might also have an opinion, right? I might
Sure.
say it feels like A and B are fundamental to C, and they're not exactly settled. So maybe if we do a little bit of work on A and B, like C might feel better to you,
Yeah.
and then we'll have maybe some discussion around that or whatever. Again, that's my expertise or my experience as the therapeutic process expert.
Hmm.
I have an instinct, right? I have an informed guess about how this could go or should go. But if you really, your intuition, your gut is like, absolutely not. I have to solve C first. Okay, fine. Like, I will adjust.
I always say in my first session with clients that ultimately therapy is a collaboration, and I can
Yeah.
only do my best work if they are putting out their best work. And when I say best, I truly
Yeah.
mean best for that day.
That
So
day.
I will
Yeah.
often say, if if out of 1 to 5, if 5 is the best day you've ever had and 1 is I'm miserable and I hate everything, like
Mhm.
if being honest with, okay, even if you can only bring a 1, bring the best of your 1, and know that
Yeah.
I will be here for that, but just know that I can't do this alone, just like you can't do this alone, which is why we're here.
Well, and let me say this too. Like, sometimes the best therapeutic work gets done on a one day,
Oh,
because that's when our
yes.
defenses are down. That's when our energy is low. That's when we're this much closer to our emotions that day. And that's, I mean, so if you're really just feeling raw and vulnerable and over it, and you're like, I don't know if I can handle therapy today, I'm gonna say, and
That's
I'm
when you
gonna
should go the
encourage you,
most.
go to therapy, right? I don't wanna see you on a 5 out of 5. That's you having a great day,
No.
fine. We can talk
Yeah.
about you having a great day, that's fine, right? But that's when you have all of your resources. I
Yes.
need vulnerability. I need the rawness. That's where the work gets done. So, yeah, if you're at a 1, show up. Show up as a 1, right? Give me you on a terrible day. That's when I feel like I'm the most effective.
That's what we're dealing with here is the
Yep,
difficult emotions, the difficult
yep.
experiences you're encountering. Not like you said, Jason, the oh wow, you're successful and you're doing so awesome and everything's going your way. Like, yeah, when things are ideal, of course you're gonna cope better.
Sure,
But
yeah.
when you're in sort of a metaphorical gutter, like let us help you out of it,
Yep. If we're
please.
there and we're expecting you, you're on our schedule, we want you however you come,
Yes. Yes.
truly. Yeah.
Amen. Also, I think it's so important to reiterate that the healing process cannot be rushed. This is
Mm,
not something, as much as there are different therapies where it's like, oh, if you go to 6 to 10 sessions and we follow this specific guideline, you
mhm.
will be better off for it, which, sure. I'm not saying that there are definitely types of therapies that are more time constricted and limited. And then there are some that are more ongoing. And I definitely subscribe much more to the work is done when it's done. And that can change and mold into different things. But do not think that you're just going to have a breakthrough on session 1. Don't think all your problems are going to go away in session 2. Don't think that you are healed by session 3. Like it is something that takes time, just like every other thing you work towards that matters to you. It
Yeah.
takes time, and we need the time to do that. You just can't put a Band-Aid on it.
Do you give a typical, like, course of treatment, like a number of
I do
sessions?
not.
You don't ballpark at all?
Nope.
Yeah, okay. Sometimes people ask me, and typically my answer is like, I wanna see you, like, if you can do it budgetarily and schedule-wise, like, I wanna see you 4 to 6 weeks in a row to really get to know each other, really get a handle on what you're working towards, and maybe even start to come up with some interventions, right? Some
Yeah.
suggestions for change. And then I tell people really don't have any expectations until maybe 10 or 12 sessions in. Like that's where I see a lot of people start to feel better.
Hmm.
It's not always the case.
No.
There are some people I've been working with for years, some on the same issue, right? Some of that is because progress is really, really slow. Some of it is I can only see them once a month. Some of it is whatever. There's lots and lots of factors. But I was just curious, like if you ever kind of ballpark it for people. And that's typically what
Yeah.
I say.
Also, this is something that I think is important to
Uh,
remember is that sometimes your therapist is going to piss you off. Sometimes your therapist is also going to mess up and maybe step in something with
oh,
something we
sure.
talk about. And then we make you mad, we make you upset, we maybe
Mm,
it feels like a betrayal of sorts. And believe me, we
mhm.
get it. We do not want that to happen. We're always
No.
trying to watch out for those landmines of sorts, but
Yeah.
as we noted before, we are human. We also though want to do better and we want to talk about that. And that is
Mhm.
the perfect moment when there is a conflict like that where maybe you feel like that person said something that was disrespectful or inconsiderate or not, very sensitive.
Yeah.
That can be such a great opportunity to find out what it was about how it was said, what was said,
Uh-huh.
and why it was such a painful thing, and how it oftentimes connects back to really important experiences with people or things you've gone through. And this is just one space where you can work on it, but it can have domino effects in all the other areas.
The way that I talk about this, and absolutely right. Like I want to validate that. I want to encourage that. Like if I've stepped in your toes, you need to tell me, right? I want to know how I did that.
Yes.
What I usually say is it's the difference between talking about the content and talking about the process.
Mm,
The content is what we're talking about, right? The process is how we're talking about it. So I want to know if how I said something did not sit well with you,
yeah.
brought up a significant emotion, right? If we're on this plane over here and we're talking right this level, and I say this thing and you go to a different plane, holy cow! I want to know that, right? So
Yes.
that's typically what I say is like it's the difference between content and process because that process that's happening between me and my client that is also happening between my client and other people that my client knows out in the world somewhere.
Yes.
So I want us to investigate that process and understand it so that when it happens again out in the real world that they know how to handle it, right? Or they at least are familiar with their response and how they maybe want to address it.
Quality therapists are always reading the room. We are always feeling out like when I said this thing, what was the response? Was there willingness? Was there a shutdown? Was there
Mhm. Yeah.
a
Oh, yeah.
sort of uh, walking around it, like walking on eggshells? And that says so much too. So
Mhm.
just know as much as like that can happen, we are always trying to assess how that thing that we just said, are they ready to hear this? Are they in a place to hear this? Is the way that we said that not the way to go because of other things? Or maybe we just, that's a blind spot of ours, is being able to say, oh, yeah, I really should have thought about that. I didn't think about it
Mm.
because of X amount of circumstances. So just remembering that it is a mutual learning experience. We are
Mhm.
still learning every single time we work with a client, and we're going to get it wrong sometimes.
Yep.
However, if we are committed to doing it better and you feel like your therapist is owning what part they might have had in that moment, that to me is always going to
Yeah.
build more trust. That's going to build more security, and that's going to lead to better work.
Yeah. Great. Great point.
Also, remember, this is so hard. I know because we have a lot of clients that are either really anxious or they're people pleasers. But I'm
Sure.
telling you, we want to hear ask for what you need. If you need more
Mm.
directness, if I'm being too fluffy and metaphorical and you want something very direct and straight to the point, like let
Sure.
me know. Now, I know that there are some therapists who maybe have real difficulty being very direct I'm not, I don't want to say brutal, but really talking about inconvenient truths. However, if there's something we can do, you can at least tell us. We may not be able to deliver what you're asking for every time based off of what the request is, but if it is something about the way that we can approach something, or maybe wanting more specific interventions that you can use in your daily life, like let us know. Like we're
Yeah.
trying to do that. We're trying to ascertain what we know works best for clients with similar profiles of what
Yeah.
they're experiencing that you're experiencing. But also we know people are not just one thing. There are many things, and
Yeah.
we never want to assume that we're just going to always know the right thing to say.
Yeah. I consider myself an integrative therapist. Like I have sort of a couple of home orientations that I draw my therapeutic tools from. And then there are several others that I'm familiar with that I will kind of bring into the process. But I don't know all of the therapeutic interventions. I don't know
Yeah,
all of the modalities. So I might have a habit of drawing from one thing, and then you're like, "Well, but what about I? Could you give me homework?" And I'm like, "Oh, sure. Let's
yeah,
talk about homework, right? What do you want to?" And so then there's specific actions that you want to take at home, and you want me to hold you accountable the next time you come
yeah.
in, and whatever, all that kind of stuff. So that I think that is totally fair to ask for.
What you do outside of that room is what matters. What
Yeah.
you do in your everyday life to make these changes has to be deliberate and has to be something you concentrate on and do something about, because we can't just wave a magic wand and fix it. If we
Yeah.
could, we would. I truly
Yeah.
wouldn't want anybody to suffer if I could actually fix it. But
I
you
would have
have
wrote the
to.
book and I would have wrote the book and retired already.
Yeah. Also super, super important, a healthy therapeutic relationship truly grows richer with time. I have some clients that I've been working with for over a decade even, and
Wow.
truly it is something where you just you develop you develop something that it isn't like every other relationship in your life, but it's a meaningful relationship. And these people and what they talk about in their stories and the people in their world, you care about the cast of characters. You care about their dreams and their
Mhm.
hopes and their fears. And so know that you can't get there unless you do the work and show up, which is true for every relationship. Um, I hate to break that
Oh,
to people.
spoiler. Yeah.
Yes, spoiler
Right.
alert.
Yeah.
What you do in therapy often can reflect how you interact with other people in your life.
Yeah.
And we're here to sometimes call that out or draw attention to that, maybe that piece that you're missing.
I sometimes have clients marvel at how I remember all of the people that they tell me about and their names and ages, whatever. And I am blessed with a good memory. I do have, but this is your story. Like my
Yeah.
clients are telling me their story.
Yeah.
The cast of characters is so important to me,
Yes.
right? It's like my favorite show that I'm watching. Like I remember all of the people and how they interact and who they relate to and all. So it is a relationship that grows richer over time, and hopefully you find a therapist that is demonstrating that to you by remembering your cast of
Yes.
characters, right? By investing in your story and understanding you deeper and deeper as the relationship grows. Yeah.
Now, before we really wrap up this conversation, I did want to make sure that we talked about what is it like for us on the other hand. So we see how sort of the what is the like what's the stupid saying? Like how the I keep wanting to say like how the cookie is made. What is that?
Sausage.
Thank you, which I think is
How
also a
the
weird
sausage.
saying. Like,
It's
yes,
also
so
weird.
we know how
Yeah.
the sausage is made. Ugh.
Yeah.
And so, but at the same time, like as a client, you're vulnerable. Just we understand that because we've been there. So
Mhm.
Jason, when it comes to your own experience as a client in therapy, what are the things that really have stood out for you or things that you think might be helpful or important to share that maybe give some insight into like your own experience?
So as a client, I think what I'm really looking for is presence. Someone who
Mm,
is really so it's hard. I will say it is hard to to please me as a therapy client. It just is. I have,
yeah.
15 years of experience as a therapist. Like if you are lacking, I will know it. So I am probably extra discerning when I am looking for a therapist, but that's truly the sign to me of somebody who I want to work with is somebody who is really and truly present and
Yeah.
asking me thoughtful questions. it tells me they're paying attention. It tells me they're
Yeah,
invested. It tells me they want to hear my story. They want to help me work on the things that I want to work on. If you're not getting that vibe from your therapist, find another
yeah,
therapist because they're not, it's just not going to do, maybe it's not their best day, right? And that's
sure.
unfortunate. But also, if truly there, it does, that's the vibe I'm looking for. And if it's not there, I know it halfway through that first session. I know it. And I'm like, okay, I don't think I'm setting up a second one.
Yeah,
I can just kind of, make that note in my head. But yeah, what about for you? What's,
yeah.
yeah.
For me, feeling understood is
Mm,
incredibly important to me.
okay. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
when a therapist, and part of that is even just like maybe how they talk about things or the way that they communicate. Like I agree. I obviously, having been doing this work for a really long time now,
Yeah.
I definitely am wanting somebody who knows what they're doing. And so I definitely have my eye out for, ooh, that was like they completely went over. Like, they totally just, like, walked by that thing I just said and didn't give it
Ooh, yeah.
anything, and that was,
Right.
for me, really hard to say, and even as a therapist, I'm also conscientious of, I don't wanna be trying to be, like, a backseat driver for that therapist, and I will say I've worked with some
Right.
therapists. I don't know if you've
Yeah.
had this happen to you, Jason. It honestly pisses me off when I have therapists that I've worked with who are like, "Well, what would you do as a therapist?" And I'm like, "I'm not here as a therapist. I'm here for you to help me." I get that that informs what I do because it's my
Sure.
specialty or whatever, but, like,
Yeah.
I'm not here if I could do that on my own. I tried doing that on my own. That's why I'm fucking here. That shit, like, no. Like, I imagine, like, I'm sorry, I wouldn't wanna go to a doctor's office and I'm a doctor and they're like, "Well,
Mm,
what would you have diagnosed this as?" Like, "No, you're the specialist.
right.
I'm coming to you. I can't
Yeah.
see objectively because I'm in it, so help
Yeah.
me."
I do appreciate that once in a while.
I'm sure
It's
you do.
you get one, well, truly, because
Yeah.
what's happening in that moment for me is that my therapist is encouraging me to be reflective in a way that maybe I wasn't.
Hmm.
And you're right. I probably tried this on my own and I wasn't able to do it effectively, right? But now through the course of therapy and the stories that we've told, the events we focused on, if we've arrived at, okay, well, in this situation, what would you say to your client? I would be like, oh, yeah, you're right. You're right. I would blah, 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 right? Whatever it is.
Sure.
So I do appreciate that once in a while to just to encouragement to be reflect because we do have a different lens as therapists. We
Sure.
do have a different reflection lens, right? So if we are in that place where we can turn it inward and go, yeah, I see where you're going with that.
Yeah.
Fine. I'm fine with that. But you're right. It's got to be few and far between.
I do better with something I can laugh with. If I can't laugh with my therapist, like,
Mm,
if I
yeah.
don't feel like they get my way
Yeah.
of
That's a vibe check for
communicating,
me,
it's
right? To
super
me,
vibe
that's a
check for
vibe check.
me.
Yeah.
Yeah, if I say
Yeah.
something and I'm just like, "Oh, they didn't even pick up on that at all," or they
hmm
had no idea what the hell I was saying. I'm not saying they
Right.
need to, like, be my best friend, not at all. I definitely don't want somebody that's just like me, but also I need you to have at least, like, some fluency in my language of
For
who
sure.
I am. So we hope that in sharing all of that, that maybe that helped to break down what the common, I think, therapy experience is in terms of getting started and what to
Mm,
look for and what to search for in yourself. Shout
okay.
outs. How are your shout
Sure.
outs for
Yes.
this episode? What do you got?
I am shouting out the fact that I didn't have to be put into a cast this week. So, for anyone who's listened regularly, I had Achilles surgery, 2 weeks post surgery. The follow up was this week, and there was some question as to whether I would need to be in a cast for 6 weeks or be in a removable boot. And I got the boot, thank goodness, because I could take it on and off and I could shower like a normal person and whatever. There's all sorts of other advantages to not having to be in a cast.
Mhm.
I still can't walk on it, but I am very grateful, and I'm shouting out my doctor, my own healing process, my health. I'm just shouting out like this whole. I'm just over the moon. Like feel like I'm moving forward with having the removable boot. So that's
Nice.
my big huge shout out for the week.
Very
How about
cool.
you?
My shout out, I have to give, I've been deeply entertained by the latest season of Euphoria. It
Mm,
is, I will say Euphoria, if you haven't watched Euphoria, it started out as a school talking or showing basically supposed teenagers in a very
Yeah.
over the top, very highly stylized version of high school that also could go very deep and very hard. And this current season, it is years, like I think 4 or 5 years, I can't remember, after they graduated from high school. And so you're following up on all these
Mm.
people. And essentially, what I guess I'm taking the theme as is everybody is sort of in a position of being trapped or controlled by something, and
Oof.
each character has a dilemma that is in its own way incredibly challenging, and some have much greater stakes than others, but you can see the things that are maybe imprisoning them based off of the choices
Mm.
they've made. And I will say
Wow.
Zendaya is just she continues to be one of the best out there. She is just truly
She just gets better and better. Everything
she
that she's
does.
in, the older she gets, the more experience she has. I really do feel like she just continues to grow as an actor. Yeah.
Yes, and I will so this is a spoiler alert for anybody who
Mhm.
either hasn't started watching or plans to watch, so you might wanna, like, jump a couple minutes,
Skip ahead.
is that one of the reasons why this has been so impactful is that so at the end of season 2, Rue got mixed up with some really shady drug dealers
Oh,
and
geez.
narrowly escaped basically becoming a drug mule. Well,
Mm.
she gets out, and that's the end of season 2. Well, season 3 picks up, and it's years later, and the drug lord finds her, and they take her, and she is now a drug
Ye
mule. And
Oh
what
my
I'm
god.
telling you, this is so it's so upsetting. Like, literally, they show the process of them feeling balloons with drugs and swallowing them and filling their stomachs with it, and then, like, literally being brought to a room to shit out the drugs.
Oh
Like,
my
and
gosh.
why I even say all that with the detail I did is because it made me so upset to see Zendaya's character in this position, but it also then made me go, "Holy shit. Oh my god, there's so many people who are going through this, who are in these positions that we don't know about, and this is
Yeah.
what they go through, and they're just people's daughters and sons or whatever."
Oh,
And it's
yeah.
just this and I know that's always been the truth, but that's the classic example of when you know someone you care about who's going through something that you had never heard of anybody else going through, or you didn't maybe you just didn't care about those people. But when it happens to someone you care about, all of a sudden you're like, this is so wrong. This is so wrong. I can't believe this is
Yeah.
happening. And
Yeah.
so anyway, the thought of her character going through this and I know that she's got all these traditional addict behaviors and decisions, and she has done horrible things in that lens. But I also see her as this like young woman
Yeah.
who just couldn't get a hold of her pain and how it has led her down to this really horrible path. But it's not all it is very disturbing at points. I will say you have to have a stomach for this show. It is intense, but
Yeah.
it can be so fucking good if you can handle it.
Yeah.
But I also recommend that if you cannot handle very intense graphic stuff, do not go for Euphoria because it's not that won't be the show for you. But if you can
It's
hang, then go for it.
it's the reason I stopped watching after season 1. I couldn't hang. It is too intense for me. It's a
Yeah.
fantastic show, and I cannot watch it.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you everybody for being on this ride with us today. We always want to remind you to like, subscribe, comment, and share anything of our podcast that you feel so inclined to do. We would love that. It helps us get our message out there for people to hear. You can find us at Collect Your Thoughts Podcast on Instagram, as well as at Collect Your Thoughts on YouTube to watch full episodes. And Jason, thank you so much for
For
your
sure.
time today and for sharing a little bit about what the therapy experience is like from your lens.
Heck yeah. You're welcome. Anytime.
All right, everybody. Well, we hope that each and every one of you out there, please remember to take a deep breath and
Collect your thoughts.
take care. Have a great day. And hey, if this is your call to get into therapy, we hope this made it just a little bit easier. Have a good one.